everybody. So, with this whole pandemic going on, what's happened is that Westlaw has come out and they made their website free for people to use at home. Now, people may be wondering what is Westlaw and why is this such a big deal? Well, typically, if you have a court case and you're pro se, one of the reasons that pro se litigants lose a lot is because they don't know how to submit documents to the court, right? And one of the main benefits of Westlaw, in my personal opinion, is that you can come to this Westlaw terminal or this Westlaw website in this situation, and you can actually search for forms that you can use so that you can put all of your motions and petitions in a proper order, and you can make these things look professional. And when you submit it before the judge, and if you follow the forms and the documents right, the judge is not going to know whether or not you're a lawyer off of first hand. Like if you follow the forms correctly, then they're not going to have any idea whether or not you're a lawyer. Versus maybe going to your county website and pulling down the forms that they typically provide on your county website is going to be slightly different from the forms that I find in Westlaw. At least that's my personal experience. That's what I find when I use Westlaw versus going to the website or going down to the county and getting the actual form to file a motion or file a petition, whatever. The forms on Westlaw are a little bit more professional. Probably, they're probably the de facto standards, since even lawyers who have cases, they typically go into Westlaw and then they'll pull a form if they're writing something up that they've never done before, they don't have it on file, and they're on law form. They'll use Westlaw to actually submit a form. So the other important thing about Westlaw is that you can actually use Westlaw to look up case law. Now, case law is going to be important when you're trying to compel a judge to actually do something, because the judge wants to know why he should, grant your motion or why he should rule in your favor. And if you don't have case law, then that's not going to mean anything to the judge. The judge is going to just look at you and he's just going to rule against you, especially if you're up against a lawyer. 9 times out of 10, the chips are stacked against you. And if you don't submit professional, polished documents to the judge, and if you don't have case law, the judge is not going to rule in your favor unless there's just something totally out of whack about, the whole case, right? And then thirdly, Westlaw is good just for increasing your understanding of the law. When you're looking up case law, you can basically read through case law and figure out how cases are ruled upon, and you can get a general gist of what's going on with the law for specific topics and things like that. So let's just go ahead and hop in here. So I'm on Westlaw, and typically in order for you to get access to Westlaw, you would have to go down to your law library. And in Illinois, that's now the one that I go to is downtown. Then you'd have to ask for a little slip, and then they give you a little slip with a login ID and password. And then you log into this thing, and then you get about 1 hour to use the terminal before you'd have to give it up, right? So right now, because of COVID-19, Westlaw says, hey, we realize people don't have access to this. So what we're going to do is that we want you to call us. Just basically go and call. You can Google Westlaw, and then you can give them a call and say, hey, I need access to a Westlaw terminal or just Westlaw Classic access. And then they'll create the user ID and password to you, and they'll send it over to you. Now, again, this is going to be pretty important stuff because, number one, people who are relying on this stuff probably don't know that they have access to it, right? If you're a pro se litigant and you were relying on Westlaw in the past, and because of COVID, you can't even get into the law library, let alone request access to a terminal. And for the people who don't know that, this is a resource that you can use to help you win your case, all you have to do to get access to this thing is just basically Google Westlaw and then you'll come to the website where you can sign up for access, and then if you're a pro se litigant, you're going to end up calling them. So if you want to kind of cut through the chase, just look up Westlaw and maybe Google the number and just give them a call, right? So then they'll give you access. The access is only for 14 days or 20 hours, whichever comes first, right? So if you use this thing for 20 hours, your access is going to terminate. If 14 days goes by, the access is going to terminate, right? So the beauty about this, though, is that, after talking to the representative, he was like, well, if you need to use this thing again, just give me another call back and I'll set you up with access again. Now, I assume that they're just going to continuously grant access to people during the COVID uh, virus outbreak. You're going to get easy access to this thing. The hardest part is actually signing up and just waiting on the phone for the guy to create the account for you. That takes about 20 minutes. I'm not sure what he does on the side, but it sounds like he has to fill out forms and then create the account, so on and so forth. Then he sends this user account ID and password over to you. That's the hardest part, just sitting on the phone. And to me, I guess it's almost similar to what would happen if you had gone into your law library. If you go into your law library, typically they already have user IDs and passwords cut out for you, and they'll just hand you a little slip. Or I'm not sure how they do it in your law library, your city, your county. But in Illinois, to me, it just seems like what they do is that they go out and they print out all these user ID and passwords for like maybe a week, and then they cut them up into little slips. And then as people come in, they need access, they just hand them the slip, and that's it. You get only access for 1 hour a day, which is kind of tough. Now, sorry to ramble, but this is all kind of disappointing because this is a pretty important tool. Excuse me. This is a pretty important tool, and I was always upset that you only get 1 hour a day if you go down to the law library. And then I'm a little upset that you have to keep calling these guys back. I would imagine that you would just use your law library ID and password to get this. I'm sorry, yeah. So everyone has a Chicago Public Library ID and password, at least I do. And I would imagine that they would just set something up so that they can allow you to come into the portal. This website uses your Chicago Public Library ID or your public library ID and password, whatever state, city you may be in, and then you can use this thing. But to me, it just seems like Westlaw and this whole law library system is just kind of stuck in the past, because Westlaw, you typically would not have access to this if it wasn't for COVID, right? So on the flip side, if you just want to pay for Westlaw access, you can actually do that. And if you have a court case going, this is something you might want to consider, because if you have a case running, you don't want to go down to the law library. Those lines are typically long as heck. And once you finally get a slip or ID and password to use this terminal, you're only going to get 1 hour. So you've taken your day out to go all the way down to downtown or wherever your law library is. You've stood in a super long line. You're waiting to get access, and then you're only going to get 1 hour. So trying to use this thing can really eat up your day. Whereas if you just pay, and it's going to be different for each individual, and it's going to be different depending on where you are, and so on and so forth. It's they can charge essentially what they want. But I've heard people, actually I was actually quoted access for as little as $100 a month, like trial access, which I thought was pretty good. If I had a case going on at the time, I could actually pay, and $100 a month, and then you can probably turn it off and on as you need it. So anyway, so let's just go ahead and poke around on this thing. So I'm just going to show you how I use it. I'm not a master of this website or the terminals. So what I would typically do is I would come in, and then you want to select the jurisdiction you're in. So I live in Illinois, so that's what I would typically select. That's what I know most. So I'm just going to click that. Let's keep it safe. And then you could also select, the federal courts for Illinois, right? There's a hot button here, include federal. Otherwise, you would have to, and you can select Supreme Court of the United States Supreme Court. I'm going to select that because it doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're in. If the Supreme Court rules on something, and from my understanding, it's going to apply to all states, right? And then you can select, the Federal Court of Appeal, District Court, so on and so forth, right? So, and then you would click Save, right? You click Save, and then you would type in your search. So we're just going to keep it simple here. We're not going to get too complicated. We're just going to type double jeopardy, if I can even spell jeopardy. I think that's how you spell it. All right, I'm not the smartest guy in the world here. So after, I misspelled it. It looks like it's, yeah. So we'll just click the correction there. Not the smartest guy in the world, right? And once you click on that, you'll see off to the left-hand side, you can kind of select the context that you want to drill down in, right? So they have cases, right? There's also key numbers, which, we'll get into when we look at a case. And then there's trial court orders, statutes and court rules surrounding double jeopardy, regulations, administrative decisions and guidance, practice law. I'm not sure what that is. Secondary sources, but here is a form, right, which I'm not sure is going to apply to this. So, the point being is that you can change the context of your search so that you can get more granularized information, right? So you could also, for example, if I select cases, you can also narrow your search if you want to add in additional keywords to kind of drill down on something specific, right? So let's just click on one of these cases so you can get an idea of, what you'll get. So when you click on the case, essentially you'll get, the case. You'll get the case essentially, right? And then what you'll find is that they'll have these little key numbers. And if you click on these will be other cases that will probably define the subject, or in this case, double jeopardy. This would give us more information on double jeopardy that help define the law. So essentially you'll get the case concerning double jeopardy, and then you'll get more information on the legal doctrine or the concept, if you will, right? So these little keys will help you solidify your understanding of whatever it is that you're searching for. That's the purpose of the keys. And as I've shown, that if you go back here, you can just go back to the key numbers, right? You can go to key numbers, and then you can just focus on the key numbers. So if there's a legal concept that you're not familiar with, I'm assuming you can click this guy, and then you can go through these, and then it will give you a better understanding of double jeopardy, right? Proceedings, offense, punishments, and persons involved. But I find, I've never used that section. I find that when I actually click on the case, and as I'm reading the case, I'll go through some of these keys, and then I'll click on the key, which is going to, number one, it's going to be some type of law or another case that solidifies the legal doctrine, right? Or it's going to be an important case as it regards to double jeopardy, right? It's probably going to be where the case law comes from. And then number two, it really helps you ground your understanding of whatever the legal concept is, right? So that's how I look up cases and Westlaw on the Westlaw terminals in the library. And then here, I think these are actual, and I could be wrong. Don't. Basically, of course, you guys know I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a guy on the internet, who's just giving you their own personal experience about law. So of course, this is my own personal experience of how you would use the Westlaw terminal. It's not official information, so don't take whatever I say with a grain of salt or three, right? More than likely I'm probably wrong on this stuff, but if you click on one of these, let me see if I can create a new tab. It's probably going to be the key. Yeah, there it is. So when you click on one of those, it's actually the key. And then if I click on the actual key, didn't get what I thought I was going to get. Oh, it's actually another search in this case. Let me go back because I thought it was going to take me straight to a specific case. So, okay, so yeah, so it says 19 cases that cite this headstone. So when I clicked the actual key, it gave me those 19 cases. And what happens if I click this? So that's a saved search, it looks like. I seem to remember, I seem to remember being able to click to a specific case that was kind of a milestone in a particular legal doctrine. But, at any rate, I'm not going to bang my head up on this stuff too much. I mean, you get the gist of it. You have first you have the case, right? You have the case, and then in the case, they're going to give you these little keys. And if you click on those little keys, you can get to save searches about double jeopardy, so on and so forth. The other thing I noticed is that maybe what I was thinking is that, the case law is already provided. And you can just click on the actual case law, right? So let's go back to the search and let's search for something else. Let's say you're going to court for the first time and you want to file a lawsuit against somebody. You can probably come to the Westlaw Terminal or come to the classic. I keep saying Westlaw Terminal because I'm used to going in and filling out a request to get access to one. But in this case, it's really just a website. But you're having a case for the first time, and you want to file a civil complaint. Somebody ran over, hit your car, kicked your dog, or damaged your property, or caused you emotional distress. So you could probably come in and type civil complaint, and hopefully this is going to show you the power of Westlaw. So you type civil complaint, and then once you type in civil complaint, you can click on forms, right? And then once you click on forms, it will give you another screen that will take you to a bunch of forms. Now, here, it gives me a lot of stuff. It goes, civil appeal rules, direct review of administration orders by appellate court. That's not what I had in mind. Complaint for damages based on malpractice. So if I would click on this, and this is a complaint for damages based on malpractice of a guardian ad item. I think this is if someone, guardian ad item, lithium, I don't even know what that is. Let's just Google this. I could actually search Westlaw for this term, but right now I'm just going to try to keep it simple because I don't want to. Yeah, so that's a child's attorney, right? So if you wanted to file a complaint against your child's attorney, you could potentially use this form, and it shows you what you need in the form, right? And then you would go into plaintiff name, then you put your name in there. Joe Blow files this civil complaint for legal malpractice against attorney, the name of the attorney for your child. In support of his or her civil complaint, the plaintiff states is fine, right? And then, number one, you're going to have to give a statement about jurisdiction and venue. And then after that, this court's jurisdiction over the parties and over the subject matter of this dispute. Plaintiff resides at this address, so on and so forth. it's showing you exactly what you need in your civil complaint against, your child's lawyer. And what's going to happen if you fill this thing out correctly, and you're not like me, it's not going to have a million grammatical errors in it, then it's the lawyer, the judge looking at this. And if he's meeting you for the first time, he's not going to have any idea whether or not you're a lawyer or not, right? Because it's going to be in the correct form. Now, of course, he's probably going to look at the wording, but this is how you get around the wording. So the other thing you can do with this, right, is that if you want to make sure that you get the correct wording, you can do another type of search. I think you can go to trial court documents, right? And you can go to trial court documents, and we're not going to look for that. We found something similar just off of quick search. You're not going to get necessarily that exact form, or you're not going to get a document relating to that form. At least we're not going to get it. I'm pretty sure if you look hard enough, you can find it. But here's something similar: civil complaint for legal malpractice. And this is a complaint someone else made. And you can basically read through someone else's complaint, and you can figure out how you should word your complaint. So you can learn how to do law through osmosis. Of course, it's always the best idea to hire a lawyer and to let a lawyer do all this stuff. But for whatever reason, you decided to represent yourself, whatever that reason may be, this is probably your best approach, right? You can also go and if you don't want a lawyer to represent you, you can hire a lawyer to go and essentially give you information, which no lawyer does. Like, I've actually tried to get lawyers to give me information in the past, and to unbundle their services, only focus on giving me the information and the forms I've needed. And they always just tell me to beat it. No, I'm not doing it. I believe it's because they want to milk you and they want to get as much money out of you. And to me, it just seems like they're not going to make that much money out of you if they're just teaching you the law. That's my opinion. I'm not sure why lawyers don't want to do that. But, if you can't get that, the alternative is just come in and use Westlaw. And again, so with this complaint, Carlos J. Carrillo versus Loyola University, and you can kind of read through this to, get a feeling for the wording. Now comes the plaintiff, Carlos Javier Carrillo, with a civil complaint for legal malpractice against Loyola University and attorney Stacy Platt. In support of his civil complaint, the plaintiff states as follows, right? And then he goes in with the jurisdiction and venue. This court has jurisdiction over the parties and over the subject matter of this dispute. Actually, this is a pretty crappy jurisdictional statement. You're just basically saying they have jurisdiction. But typically, I would expect a complaint to say, this statute or some case law, shows that. Actually, this is, I would expect a complaint to list that, the parties, so the personal jurisdiction is here. Carlos Javier Carrillo resides at 1338 61st Avenue, Cicero, Illinois, right? So that's going to be the personal jurisdiction, and resides at the same address for the previous 18 months. Defendant, Loyola University's main campus located Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, with the jurisdiction of this court. So that's going to be the personal for Carlos and the corporation. Defendant, Stacy Platt, is a law professor at Loyola University. Her office is at 25 East Pearson Street. Bam, that's her personal jurisdiction. And then it says plaintiff is now 23 years old and only recently, on or about June 2009, discovered information in his parents' divorce records indicating that Mrs. Platt did not represent his best interests and failed to protect him from the severe acts of verbal, physical, and mental abuse. And this is probably going to be the subject matter. So I kind of take this back. Basically, and I'm not reading this, but the only other thing you want to probably quote here is like maybe the statute that gives the court subject matter jurisdiction. And maybe that's here. And it says serve as legal representative on behalf of Loyola University's Child Law Center, where the plaintiff was a minor during his parents' divorce proceeding, Carrillo v. Carrillo. So you want to give the you want to put in your jurisdictional statement something that's going to quote a statute or some type of law that shows that the court has subject matter jurisdiction, right? So that's really off the topic. We're not really getting into that, but you can read the complaint and you can kind of figure out how to word your complaint, right? So basically the background information or the facts of the case, as I like to call it, that on or about May 2nd, 2003, attorney Stacey Platt of Loyola Child Law Center was appointed as guardian ad litem. Hey, wow, this is exactly what we wanted, right? For the parents of for the parties for children, Stacey Platt continued to serve as the child's representatives on behalf of the plaintiff and his three siblings until approximately July 2006. And then, pretty light facts. And then it goes on to say that the plaintiff's mother inflicted multiple acts of physical and mental abuse on him when he was a minor child. Some of the more severe acts of abuse are cited in his complaint and documented in the court records of Carrillo versus Carrillo. Then he gives a case number, so on and so forth, right? And then it goes on and says that Stacey Platt violated Illinois statute. So this is what I would have expected to find in the jurisdiction statement. I would say, something. I would say something to the nature of the jurisdiction is granted through, the statute, the subject matter, so on and so forth, right? So basically, when you read this case, you'll get an idea of how you want to word your case, right? We're just going to move on. We're not going to focus on any particular case, but you see here that you have the actual form, right, where you can get the form so you can draft your complaint, and then you can also look up trial court documents and also briefs. Let's see what happens if we click a brief. Yeah, so you can briefs are probably going to be for appeals court, but basically you click the form, right, for the particular thing that you're looking for, and then you can click on trial court documents, and then you can find examples of someone who's filled out, a form for what you're trying to do. So now you have the template, and then you have the wording. Maybe if you want to have a better chance, you can probably get several different court documents from different individuals on the same thing, and then you can read through those and you can figure out how you want to word yours, right? So if we were looking for something specific, we can narrow down, and let's say we wanted to find a complaint for emotional distress. We will put in emotional distress if we wanted to get granular, and then we click search, and let's see if we can get a civil complaint for discrimination and civil rights violations. We want one that specifically alleges emotional distress. Well, emotional distress is probably kind of a common item in any complaint. We want to see if we can find something that's only about emotional distress. Maybe we can't find that. Maybe we will. Who knows? Plaintiff, response and opposition, complaint. Let's look at this here. Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be a little tough to find a complaint that only alleges emotional distress, but false in count one, false arrest, false imprisonment. Let's see. Emotional distress. This is an action for inter alia violations of constitutional rights, inter alia among many things, constitutional rights pursuant to U.S. 42 I'm sorry, 42 USC 1983. Oh, this is a deprivation of rights claim. I'm pretty sure this is federal court here. No, this is a circuit court. You can file federal complaints in circuit court. False imprisonment, false arrest, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conspiracy. Plaintiff Gerald Dix was wrongfully and maliciously charged with telephone harassment relating to retaliation for filing civil rights complaints against the village of Laos, right? So if you wanted to only focus on the emotional distress aspect, you can just drill down to that count. Additionally, the emotional pain and suffering caused by the imprisonment has been substantial. During the false imprisonment, the plaintiff was stripped of various pleasure of a basic human experience, from the simplest to most important, which all free people enjoy as a matter of right. He missed out on his ability to share time with his peers and working diligently in his career, and the fundamental freedom to live as one's life as an autonomous human being, right? So let's see if we can get down to the actual count, right? So here's the count. What is that? 7, I think. I hate Roman numerals. I can never really get that right. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. So here's a count. So if you wanted a complaint and you wanted the emotional distress element in it, you could basically use this as a template to, not a template, but to try to capture some of that wording and put it in your complaint, right? It goes, plaintiff realleges and repeats paragraph 1 through XX as fully set forth herein. The continuing acts and conducts of all the defendants as set forth above were extreme and outrageous. So extreme and outrageous is one of those key words in any emotional distress complaint. You're basically saying they're doing something just totally crazy, totally out of pocket, something unheard of, unseen, extreme, and outrageous, right? And then were rooted in an abuse of power of authority, and were undertaken with the intent to cause, or were in reckless disregard of the probability that their conduct would cause severe emotional distress to the plaintiff, as is more fully alleged above. A significant portion of emotional distress was caused by the false arrest and the false imprisonment of the plaintiff, and the continuing failure of the defendant to reveal their wrongdoings to a competent authority. As a direct and proximate result, there's another key word, right? Direct and proximate result. And a lot of times when you find these keywords, and you probably won't know that there's keywords, but when you see something and it just kind of stands out, you can go and you can use a Westlaw terminal to search up something like this, right? So we'll just copy that for now. And then, as a direct and proximate result, as the defendant's actions, plaintiff suffered and continues to suffer severe emotional distress. Wherefore, Ms. Dix demands compensatory damages in the amount in excess of $50,000, and punitive damages in the amount sufficient to deter similar misconduct jointly and severely from each defendant, plus cost attorney fees. Attorney fees. It's a typo right there. Attorney fees, not feed. Hopefully you don't have to feed your attorney, but if you're paying your attorney, he's probably using that money to feed himself. And whatever additional relief this court deems just and equitable, right? So this just goes to show you that, everybody makes typos, right? So even attorneys make typos. I don't think this is an official way to indicate anything in a request for settlement. I don't even know if that's a thing attorneys feed. Attorney is not an animal. He's a human being, I guess. At least some are. But if we go and we type this phrase, direct and proximate, you'll see that it'll give us another search. I probably should have started another window. And you'll see that it's actually a concept called proximate cause, right? And you could, do a little search on that to get your understanding of what it is. I believe that, and here's the exact phrase, direct and proximate cause result of a heart attack. But if you search through this, you'll get the understanding of what it actually means, right? Of course, it helps if you have a law dictionary, which I do. But we're not going to get into that because that's not the context of this particular video. But basically, hopefully now you're beginning to see the power of this Westlaw terminal. Again, not a terminal, but the Westlaw resource, and why it's going to be important. Even attorneys use this, right? So if it's a attorney who basically has his own, you know, lineup of clients, right? That, let's say the attorney doesn't belong to a huge law firm that pays for this access, they're going to go into the law library just like you and I, and then they're going to not pay, they're going to ask to use this resource, right? So attorneys use this, and then if it's an attorney from a major law firm, then more than likely that law firm has paid for this access because they have cases all day, every day. And they say, you know what, we're not going to sit in the law library, requesting access like, all the other peasants. We're just going to go ahead and pay. We're a prestigious law firm. We don't have to beg for access. We're not peasants. We're just going to go ahead and pay. And more than likely, that law firm is probably paying a huge amount of money. It's probably going to be based on the number of lawyers in their office. And of course, Westlaw is going to track all of that stuff, how long the terminal is being used, who's using it, so on and so forth, right? So that's the gist of it. Whether you're an attorney or you're a peasant like myself, I'm just joking. If you're just a pro se litigant like myself, you want to use this Westlaw terminal because you want to, number one, you want your documentation that you submit to the court to look as crisp and clean as possible. And then number two, you want to word your documents or your pleadings as crisp and clean as possible. Probably not the best words to use, but you want them to be as close as possible to what any lawyer would submit, in my opinion, right? You want the judge to have a clean, polished, professional document in front of them. Most judges, they already get turned off when they see a document in front of them that they have to read that's full of grammatical errors, which, we've already seen, even lawyers do, with attorney's feet in there. And it's not in correct form, so they're going to be turned off by that. They're going to be ready to throw your complaint straight into the garbage can, and you're going to already have one strike against you. You haven't even really been seen by the judge. The judge has seen your documents. He goes like, oh, another moron. And he's going to be ready to get rid of you before you even come through the door, right? So that is about it. If there's some features on the Westlaw terminal that you think are important and should be covered, definitely leave your questions and comments below, or make your own video about Westlaw and put a link to that video in the questions and comments below. The other feature that I like about this Westlaw Classic Access is that you can choose to print, right, which is essentially going to be a download of any article that you find. So let's say if we go back to, well, let's just say we pick this Paroline versus United States. And let's say we like this case and we want to look at this case for further observation. We want to have a deep analysis of this case, right, and see if we can use it in our case, right? Then we can email this to ourselves, or we can email it to other people. I could say, hey, Samantha, take a look at this. If I click on this, I can say, I can put the person's email. I can put the person's email address in there, or I can put their email address in there, and then I can also put some notes in there. I can say, hey, Samantha, I found, of course I can't spell. How do you spell Samantha? I found a case that you might be interested in, right? And then I can choose the format, whether it's going to be PDF, rich text formats, or just a plain Word perfect document. And then I can send it off to the person, that I want to send it off to, right? And I think you can, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure Westlaw counts the amount of emails that you're sending, and they are probably also counting the amount of cases you're downloading. I know if I went into the law library, I think there's a limit of 10 to be printed out and maybe 10 to be emailed. And after you go over that limit, the terminal has a hard stop in a law library. I'm not sure if that's the case here. It looks like I can also put it in Dropbox, right? So this thing has lots of features. I'm pretty sure it has features that I'm not even aware of, right? And then it also tells you Supreme Court of the United States. It tells you what jurisdiction the case is in, although you can get that from reading the case caption. What else? Filings. It shows you all the filings in this case. So, yeah, so as you can see, Westlaw, this terminal can be critical to you winning or losing the case. If you're serious about winning your case, you probably want to get access to this. Once COVID is over, you'll have to go into. I hope that once COVID is over, that Westlaw will just say, you know what, this seems to be working out. We want to strike a deal with the Chicago Public Library or your library, and you no longer have to have people go in and sit down at the terminal. We're just going to use your Chicago Public Library card to give you access to this thing. I'm hoping that they do something like that. But more than likely, once COVID is over, you have to go to your law library. For me, that's the Chicago Public Library. And then you're going to have to wait in line, get a slip of paper with ID and password, and then you're going to, use that to get access to the terminal. Or you can just say, you know what, I don't want to take half my day out just to use this damn thing. I'm just going to pay, the 100, 200, 300 bucks a month to get everything I need, and then shut off the access, or shut off the payment at that point, because me personally, if you have a case, and let's say that case, if you're suing somebody for, let's say, $50,000, then it's worth maybe trying to figure out how you can pay $300 a month to get access to this thing. Because the problem with going down to the Chicago Public Library, if you have a thought in the middle of the night, you can just log on and you can use Westlaw. But otherwise, you'd have to jot down what you're thinking, and then you would have to save that on your notes, and then the next time you're in the library, you'd be able to search for all this stuff. So there's a chance that you may not be able to get the information that you want when you want it, right? So me personally, if you have a case going on, or you're trying to defend yourself, let's say you're trying to defend yourself against a lawsuit, and someone is suing you for $100,000, then it's going to be worth it to see if you can negotiate, paying a reasonable price for this access, because then you'll be able to defend yourself properly, right? And again, you don't necessarily have to pay every month. This is my thinking. Hopefully you can just pay month to month, turn it on for a month, get everything you need, then turn it off. And then maybe a couple of months down the line, if your case is still going, you need more information, you can turn it back on, get what you need. And you can balance this with actually going down to your library to get access. So anyway, that's it for this video. Questions or comments below. You should get Westlaw access, even if you don't have a case, but you're interested in legal stuff. You could, get access. And it's even good for looking up famous cases, right? So if I type in Roe v. Wade, right? Roe v. Wade, I should be able to get information about that case. Roe v. Wade, here it is. So here's an actual case. I can get all the court filings about this case. Negative treatment, I don't even know what that is. I'm not sure what this is. You tell me what this is. Questions, comments below. You can get a plethora of information. So this is the history, the timeline, I'm assuming. And these are all, Jesus Christ, they cited 28,000 references in the case. Wow. I'm not sure if this is case law, or I'm not sure what references mean in this context. And then the table of authorities. So there's a lot of information that you can get, right? Now, of course, there's other free websites out there that you can use. For example, Court Listener. But I think eventually, if you went to a site like Court Listener, let's see here, Court Listener, right? So if you went to a website like this, you could do something similar. Roe v. Wade. Oh, I'm sorry. So Roe v. Wade, 1973. And then I click on that case, and this is the actual case. Then I could also, there's other little things on the side. I think what I wanted to do is that I wanted to do a recap archive, right? Roe v. Wade, and when I click on Roe v. Wade, right, so I can get, I hope to get all the filings in this case, but right now I can't. But one of the things I noticed about the Court Listener is that, you know, some of the stuff would be free, like in this situation, but then some of the stuff you'd have to actually pay for. So at the end of the day, it looks like you're going to be able to get granular access, and you could also get, yeah, so if you click view on Pacer, you can get all the information. You're going to end up paying for some of this information anyway in piecemeal, which may be cheaper. But in my opinion, the superior, I think Westlaw is going to be a little bit more superior, because you will be able to get, you know, the forms and the briefs. It's going to be a superior product. But I think eventually what's going to happen is that some of these tools, I'm going to call them open source tools, are going to eventually catch up with Westlaw. And maybe, and there's another one, LexisNexis is another one, but it looks like LexisNexis is another tool. I've never really used LexisNexis, but it's similar to Westlaw. But I think eventually what's going to happen is that some of the open source online tools is going to catch up with Westlaw. Let me hear what you think about that. Questions and comments below. But right now, you should be enjoying your online access to Westlaw. It's free. If you're a blogger, you can go and you can get access to the stuff. You can get information, and you can be a better blogger with Westlaw access, at least if you're blogging on legal stuff like myself. Or if you have a case, if you're suing somebody, you want to sue somebody, or somebody's suing you, or somebody's threatening to sue you, then go and get Westlaw. Of course, I'm not getting paid by Westlaw. They're not giving me any money. I just think it's a really good tool to use. It's free. You would typically go to your law library to use it, but now you can use it in the comforts of your own home. Go and check this out. That's it for this video. Please leave your question and comments below. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.